Hey everyone,
Hey
thanks
everyone.
thanks for joining us today for the MSP's Road to Compliance. I am Corey Underdown with DNSFilter. I'm joined today by Juan Fernandez, Global Channel Chief at HacWare, and Dom Wells, Partner Alliance Manager at DNSFilter. Before we get started with their introductions, I do want to go through just a little bit of housekeeping. On the right side, you can find the chat box. You can use that to ask any questions that come up for you. And also chat with your fellow attendees. Feel free to go ahead and type in where you're joining us from today, and we can get the chat started. But we will have a few minutes at the end for Q&A, so even if your question is not answered during the presentation, there'll still be an opportunity at the end. So now I'm going to hand it over to you, Dom, to take the presentation away.
Hey everybody, my name's Dom. I am the Partner Alliance Manager here at DNSFilter. I've been in the cybersecurity space for about 5 years now, primarily working with MSPs. Some of you may have known me from my Pax8 days, but now I've decided to work at an ISP, which has been an awesome journey so far. So yeah, I will pass it off to Juan here.
Yeah, and welcome everybody, and thanks for having me, Dom. It's a great honor to be here today. My name is Juan Fernandez. I am the Global Channel Chief for HacWare, and I've been in the IT industry for far too long, it feels like. Many my stints have been a recovering MSP. For many of you that are joining us today, I have been down that journey and been known to have scaled an MSP to about 20 million. And it's been a great journey, and I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation today and look forward to just really bringing some education on ways that we can be successful. So thanks for having me, Dom.
Sweet. And thanks for being here. Thank you all for joining us. Let's get started and talk about an MSP's road to compliance. So here's just a quick overview before we jump in. But we want to talk about what is compliance, why does it matter? Everyone's been hearing it for the past few years here, every day, day in, day out as an MSP. Let's understand the new MSP landscape that's out there, how we can leverage some compliance as a sales tool for MSPs, and why it is actually something that you can leverage for your own practice, for your customers, and then talk about some key takeaways. We'll leave some room for Q&A, but please don't hesitate to just chime in and put in some questions in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring that, and so we'll answer those as they come up. But yeah, let's get started. What's the deal with compliance, Juan? Why am I hearing it day in, day out?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about it today? And why is it important?
I think the biggest thing is that, I call 2023 the year of education. And I think that for a lot of us, whether it be technology solution providers, vendors, whatever it may be, we recognize that the world is changing, right? For years in the past, we've had a lot of opportunity to build technology to the point that it is today. And the cheapest choice has never been cybersecurity, right? It always increased friction in an organization. It always created strife. It created challenges, and it was just a lot of things that people didn't want to do. And I love to ask this question: how many of us know how to get on the internet the right way? And oftentimes I get a lot of blank stares, and the reason is because it's never truly ever really been defined appropriately, right? We've always jumped on the information superhighway with a Yugo with a flat tire and a cracked windshield, and we're just racing through trying to get through our lives, right? And we've used some tools that we weren't necessarily really understanding how to use. And I think that now that the technology is so widespread and now we have so many adopters of it, now it's time for us to kind of come back to the reality of now we need to secure this modern world, right? Now we have all this technology that's out in the mainstay, and now we need to make sure that in our car we have seat belts and windshields and doors that lock, right? And those are the types of things, back in the early days, if you remember when Henry Ford first created the car, there's a really great picture that I saw come out recently where one of the first cars, they were demonstrating how to use security within a vehicle, and they had a seatbelt around the neck of the individual just in case of a crash that their head wouldn't move forward. And I thought that depiction was kind of funny as you think about it, right? It's like, we moved so quickly into this foray of technology that we didn't necessarily recognize all the components that it took to be safe in this world. And that's where I think we're at today. And I really am excited about this conversation because we're here now. We can offer up the new security solutions and compliance and regulations and show how this is going to save your business and some of the major ways that you can be you get protected by implementing security process and policy and best practice and procedures that I think it's really being adopted by more and more. And I think it's really exciting to see. But what's some of your thoughts on that?
No, I 100% agree with all of that. I remember those days my dad would talk about where seatbelts weren't a thing. It's really interesting for me jumping into the cybersecurity space and understanding that there's not a ton of regulations out there for managed service providers who work with MSPs. Yeah, you have regulations with working with government, healthcare, like through HIPAA, but for a large amount of SMBs, there isn't much. And that was really interesting to me because, you know, for me to become a financial planner, I had to get certified. I have to, you know, go to some sort of governing body. But as an MSP, I could just whip up a website and start selling, you know, Microsoft and start charging for support. And so I really think, you know, no matter what kind of compliance that you're looking at today, it's really important that, you know, these regulations are coming towards us as a way to raise the tide, as a way to secure all of the SMBs that we're protecting, because as MSPs, you guys are the key. You know, you guys are the driver of that vehicle, so to speak. And so it's best for us to, you know, start wearing seatbelts and make sure that our passengers are wearing seatbelts too, and making that as a whole thing. So there's so many different types of compliances we'll get into today. So yeah, I know I'm really excited for us to start talking about this. So it's a big deal because, hey, hackers are out there. They're making a lot of money out of this. We need to start regulating, having documented processes. So I'm really excited that this is becoming more of a thing, because I remember even 3 years ago, you know, I would hear CMMC, HIPAA, but nothing like CIS, NIST, Cyber Essentials, things like that. So I'm really excited that there's more coming out here and there's more awareness and education today. So yeah, why does it really matter though, Juan? Why do you think compliance really matters for MSPs?
I just, you know, here's the thing, you know, and we'll talk about the opportunity in the MSP space, but, you know, if you take a look at some of the state of the, you know, cybersecurity or state of the channel or state of the SMB reports that are coming out from like CompTIA and Datto and from all these other wonderful organizations, you know, you got to look at where the puck is skating to where the puck is going, you know, and really the opportunity is as a managed service provider is to provide a process of success within an environment. And we'll talk about this in just a little bit, but, you know, one of the big ones, and again, you know, you guys and us, you know, DNSFilter and HacWare, you know, we're focused on the success of our customers and really being able to make an impact where, you know, and help you skate to where that puck is going. And I think that when you think about it, you know, I teach this a lot is, you know, is really having a process to deliver some sort of success within a customer's environment. You know, many of us, you know, maybe sell hardware or products or services, but like, how does that translate to customer success? Can you show a path forward with that? And I know we're going to cover that later, but, you know, really what customers are looking for is a secure path forward. And I think that that's really where the business opportunity for MSPs are, is that I can now show this secure future, and I'll illustrate this in just a little bit on how we actually move customers into this new world of, you know, maybe I buy a laptop, but I also need all these security policies associated with that laptop, you know. And so I used to always say, I like to step 10 steps for any one move I make in business, right? And that's where I think we're giving them the opportunity to make secure, compliant steps through the thoughtful use of injecting new technologies like a laptop. There's probably 10 to 20, 15 different policies that you can implement there, right? And that's where you show your value and moving that needle forward. But Dom, what are your thoughts, buddy?
No, 100% agree with that. I think that it's no longer, you know, the case to just check off the box and say you're doing something, right? SMBs now want to see how you're doing something. And I think these compliance frameworks are a way for partners and MSPs to show their customers how they're doing it. It's a great education tool to show, you know, these are the stages I'm going to take you through. This is where you're at today. And this is kind of the carrot on the stick of where we're going to go as an end goal. And so If anything that you take today, please just document everything. And so I think, that's the first step. If there's anything you take away, please just document everything, because I think we'll get into that a bit more, but that's just going to help you set yourself up for success, to show that journey, not only for yourself, because I think a lot of this is also, hey, securing yourself as an MSP, but the ability to show what you're doing for those SMBs. So yeah, I think it's a hugely important matter. And so yeah, let's just jump right into why today? Why now? We understand why it's important. We understand, kind of maybe it's a small semblance of the business opportunities here for managed service providers, but why now? Why should MSPs care today?
Yeah, it's on the forefront. One of the great things we're going to share in the chat here is, obviously CIS is out there and Congress is setting new rules for MSPs, but there's also customer questions that are being asked, and the new customers are asking different questions. And in the chat, we're going to throw down some a document I love to share, which is called the MSP Shopping Guide, right? And so it's not just that we want to do this, right? It's now that we're being encouraged to do it, not only but from the government, from our customers and alike, but internally we know best practice, right? And I think that when we start to see the things that are making businesses make decisions, which I like to call pressure, it's causing them to be forced to actually make a change, which is causing us to change. Now, I like to say that we would just do it because we understand best practice and we want to implement it, but sometimes we do things because we're made to do things. And again, the document we're going to share with you is called the MSP Shopping Guide. It is a great thing that came from the National Defense of Information Sharing and Analysis Center. And it's really an interesting document, because the first thing that it says to MSPs is, or to SMBs, excuse me, is that in the use of time, if an MSP can't answer the first 5 questions, SMBs should move on. But the flip side of that coin is that it also says MSP should use this document to be able to position their products and services to customers, right? So when you think about that, like, this is coming at us not just from, all these different places, but now it's consumers are now asking for it, right? Insurance agencies are asking for it. And there's just a really great thing. Again, you can find the shopping guide in the lower left-hand link of your screen. You guys can see it down there in the bottom left. But we have a great quote from our best friend, Matt Lee. And Dom, do you want to read that out?
Yeah, this is a good mutual friend of ours. If you're in the MSP space, you've probably seen his Beard Banter show. Matt Lee is everywhere. He's at every conference. But yeah, why now? And I think we'll post a link to this exact article from Matt Lee, which I found really critical of understanding the new landscape for MSPs. And Lewis, in the chat, you hit it exactly right. Data laws and requirements have made regulatory compliance a fact of life for every MSP. And so the federal government has actually defined what an MSP is in their new CIRCIA Infrastructure Act of 2022. I'm not going to say, cyber incident reporting for critical infrastructure every time. That's just a mouthful. So we're just going to stick to CIRCIA, because this is actually now, remember that thing I was talking about of becoming a financial planner, how to get certified? Well, this is kind of the first steps of that for becoming an MSP. There is regulatory bodies, at least right now in the United States. It's going to become, I'm pretty sure, more global. But this is big because if you're an MSP and you don't have a security program, you don't have an incident response program, you don't have a way to report incidents, it's actually a liability for you as an MSP. And so we're actually going to post a link here in a few slides regarding exactly that, about some of the state regulatory laws. But yeah, you can't possibly meet these CIRCIA requirements without the documentation, without having an incident response plan or proper security program. And guess what? A lot of CIRCIA is modeling after is a lot of these cybersecurity frameworks that we're going to talk about and are seeing today. And so it's really imperative that starting now is better than later. If I wish I could, if I was an MSP, I would wish I started a few years ago, because that would have set me up for better success. So a lot of these components, again, is not just checking off the box, but really adhering to that compliance and really practicing that compliance. And so Congress is now going to hold us to that and make sure that the people who are actually driving the security of SMBs and enterprises worldwide and in the United States are held to that responsibility, because we are responsible. We are that security advisor for these SMBs. So, so yeah, before we jump into the next slide here, we'd like to take a poll of what are the compliances that you guys are following today, if any. You know, we're only allowed 5 choices in the poll, but there's an other section. If you're using other, please let us know. But yeah, Juan, is there anything you want to jump in here before we jump into some of the policies and frameworks?
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting, when we think about this, obviously as you guys are answering the poll here, definitely make sure you're over in the chat and you're clicking. But, the big thing is, to your point, you mentioned documentation a moment ago. When I was building my practice years and years ago, back in 2014, one of the most important things is knowing what I know from industry was all about security and compliance, right? And really making sure that whenever customers were making that first step, the way that we set people up, and I'm sad that the pandemic happened, right? But I will say that a lot of our customers that I was supporting during that time as an MSP were ready for something like that because of the fact that we had security best practice implemented. They didn't have a lot of challenges when this remote work thing started, because we had already embraced a security temperature of which we were addressing those types of concerns, right? Whether it was with our PSA or with other tools, we had addressed those effectively so that when it happened, it wasn't such a huge impact and it wasn't such a massive opportunity. And that's where during the last couple of years, we've had the cybersecurity threat landscape proliferate because of the fact that, there's new conversation about the infinite edge, right? Where customers have now become everywhere instead of the old command and control. And so really, I think a stepped process on how you're going to implement security policies, posture, procedure, and compliance is really important. And so I'm really excited to see what we're seeing here on the chat and on the poll, to see how many people are already stepping in that direction, because it's an important thing, and again, back to the taking, 5 steps for everyone. I really feel like this is a great opportunity for MSPs to really add extreme value, right? And we have, recognize the fact that we have a responsibility to deliver secure products. There's Brad Gross always says that if you touch it, you're liable for it. And we have to realize that that's the new world we live in, right? So so many of our customers, and I know all of us here today know that, if I go in and touch a customer's environment, whether it's break, fix, or managed services, they assume that I am responsible for it, whether a cyber incident happens or not, even if I have it addressed. And that's where we'll talk about limits and liabilities in a while. But it's important for us to think through this right now and to get aligned with something, because we have to start thinking about those things. So I love to see what's coming in here. I'll let you reveal what we're seeing.
Yeah, I'm seeing, okay, so about 53% of our attendees are saying they're following NIST today. Second to that is 35% at CIS, 12% on other. If you're on other, please let us know which ones you're following. But glad to see that a lot of us are choosing at least something, right? I think the key takeaway is, as we're determining which frameworks to choose, starting with something is better than nothing. Having something there, having some sort of framework to guide your processes and procedures is huge and critical. So yeah, we'll say, okay, about 50% NIST, 30% CIS, 20% other. What we're going to jump into is, what do SMBs care about? What do IT decision makers at the SMB and mid-market level actually care about? Is it NIST? Is it CIS? Surprise, surprise. It is actually CIS. So this is, we'll post a link about the where we found this data, which is on Data's threat report for SMBs for 2022. And so surprisingly, Data found this data through surveying about 2,900 different IT decision makers in the SMB space. And they found that CIS is actually number one as far as levels of use. and number one as far as level of concern. Sorry, I have dogs, so they're going to be barking. Second to that is CMMC. Third is COVID. Fourth is NIST. Fifth is ISO, and the list goes on. So, what are your thoughts about this fact here?
Yeah, and I think it's really, number one, it was kind of interesting to see. I think that when we look at the complexity of some of these compliance opportunities and frameworks, I think that some of them are really difficult to understand. There's a lot of nuts and bolts, and they can seem a little daunting. And I think that that's why we see some of those lower on the adoption scale of importance, because it might be a very lofty reality in certain cases. Where if you look at the one that's more easily to consume, it's actually probably the one that's more, approachable, if you will. And that's where I think when we look at friction and we look at the way that, end user customers are doing business, they're looking for the least amount of friction, especially because I have to do something new. This is a lot of change. How do I ingest it simply and easily? And it's interesting to see that, where we're aiming might be a little bit of a higher bar as a group here today. And that's really great to see because I think that in the future, it's going to be a requirement that we actually have to get to that point. But really excited to see that most people are looking at some sort of cybersecurity, or at least have some awareness of it. So whether they're using it or they have a level of comprehension of it, I'm just excited to see that this isn't as a stark of reality as I thought it might be. My biggest concern whenever I'm talking to people is that they have no idea what I'm talking about, especially in cybersecurity. And it's really a good view here to see that there's a good amount of customers that actually do have an idea. So when we're starting to have conversations with them as technology solution providers and saying, hey, we're following these types of frameworks, at least I don't have to educate them on what that means. And that's the great opportunity there, so we can save some time. But it's interesting to see CIS at the top, though.
I was surprised.
When I saw this,
I thought it was going to be NIST as well.
I thought it was NIST too.
I think a lot of the poll people as well. D asked a great question in the chat. Would UK Cyber Essentials drive be similar to US CIS or NIST? So we'll actually touch on that a little bit, D, on the Cyber Essentials. But in my mind, it's more closely related to NIST as a general framework, whereas CIS has kind of more stages as far as, and I'm not sure Cyber Essentials is updated, super recently, but CIS has a few stages. We'll go into all of that a bit later and show you guys the differences between the two. But yeah, if you guys are surprised, let us know. And just trust me, if you take anything away from today, please just choose one framework. Just choose a framework.
Yeah,
we don't have any today. I know not everyone who's watching this actually answered the poll, but if you've not started today, there's no time better than now to actually get started. So let's talk a little bit about CIS. I think a big conversation we have today is, these are the ones that, or CIS is the one that it seems like a lot of the IT decision makers are looking for and have the highest level of concern for. And I know you're a bit of a mentor for me, Juan, so I know you've been in this space really long. You've seen the evolutions of a lot of these frameworks. Can you talk to us about, the evolution of CIS and how it got to where it's today?
Yeah, and I think it all starts off, from, again, getting on the internet and the best practice. It's been interesting to watch, all these things that come into CIS and all the implementations and opportunities. But again, it's just steering us in the direction that we can be educating our customers. And it's interesting enough, if you think about it, and I want to make this easy for MSPs to understand, because I know that cybersecurity can be a bit of a daunting task when you're thinking about it, or maybe you don't come from a security background. Maybe many don't, and that's okay. But here's the thing, right? Right now, a lot of people do assessments in their customers' environments now. And a lot of the things that in the CIS controls, if you take a look at them, just to high overview, a lot of the things that we're looking at in the assessment is basically things that we're looking at. So, if you're really looking to round out your assessment and your environments, how you're doing your customers, you can use this as an alignment tool, right? Where you're actually looking at this as an assessment when you're looking at a customer's environment. How are we addressing this? Again, back to how MSPs can make this, something that they can move forward with. Regardless of where we're at today, we have to actually adopt something. CIS is a low barrier to entry. we're already it kind of aligns with a standard managed services assessment, if you will. And really looking at it and saying, well, here's where the risk is that you have currently today, and here's what you need to be doing. It really shows them, okay, here's all the opportunities in my organization, and I need to do something about them. It's that shared responsibility matrix where we push back and say, what do you want to do about this? This isn't mine, this is yours, right? And so it really helps you to build that trusted relationship and be that trusted advisor, if you will, with that customer, because you're showing business level value and you're making me aware of things that I didn't have any idea about. And it's really a great way to look at it if you think about it in that way, versus it just being this cybersecurity thing that I now need to do, is implement it to be a part of your process. And I think that that's where it really, the rubber meets the road. And that's where I think the way MSPs think about their initial assessments now we can actually have a more enhanced assessment and integrating certain things in compliance tools such as this. So, Dama, hopefully that helps spell out some or demystify some myths on the complexity of how to implement
Absolutely. And I think when I take a look at these 18 controls, and when I've spoken to the MSPs, it's just like, hey, a lot of MSPs are already doing a lot of these components, like, right? So a lot of most of the MSPs I know are doing email and web protection, EDR, some sort of data recovery, some sort of inventory asset management platform, right? What I like a lot about CIS is it kind of already maps out the how for an MSP. So that way you can actually practice and follow along and go from, their first CIS IG1 to IG2 to IG3, which is a nice kind of milestone breaker, which I find with a lot of different compliance frameworks a bit tough, because it's like it's either 0 or 100. But I love that CIS keeps it simple, makes it easy to map, and I think that's a good segue into talking about with CIS how accessible it is. And so what I love, again, another part of it is that they have all these tools, free resources on their website to get their most up-to-date version of to have an assessment for yourself or your customers, get companion guides, also be able to map your tools to see which ones they fulfill, which controls they fill, which ones you're doing. And so I think like it was really extremely thought out, and it's completely free for you to follow along, which I truly love. And I think like, to me, when I see like a lot of cyber insurance companies, if your customers are asking for that, or you yourself are looking for that, if you look and map out the controls that a cyber insurance company is looking for and look at CIS, it's extremely similar, if not the exact same sometimes. And so, what do you think about CIS's kind of resource, their database, how they're helping MSPs today?
Yeah, I think it's really meaningful. And I do like the simplicity of it. I know this isn't a sales class on which, compliance is the right one for you. But I mean, if I'm getting started and I'm thinking about like the easiest path in, sometimes it's just best to get started, right? And I like how CIS has basically, like you said, IG1, IG2, IG3. And I think that the policy templates are killer. A lot of MSPs don't know, and I want to share this link, but there are a lot of requirements that we have internally where we have a responsibility to report cybersecurity incidents, and we're going to share a link with you guys today that's comes to us that allows us to know by state what our requirements are. And maybe we don't know that right now, but I mean, this is the whole point about us getting started somewhere. We're starting to learn, and I know that CIS gives us a lot of those opportunities to really look at those things and say, okay, what do I need to be doing now? The data breach notification laws by state will help you to kind of understand what are some of the things that you should be doing. And again, CIS is giving you the tools and templates and resources to really get started, to say, all right, I got to get serious about this. How do I get started on this? And they got a great dashboard. They got a great community and also a lot of different things on the back end to map out your vendors, like you mentioned. So yeah, it's a solid resource for sure.
Yeah.
Good place to get started.
Yeah. And I think, I'm a person who likes to, not have cheat codes, but we're going to help a lot of you MSPs who are using CIS today and see where like DNSFilter and HacWare kind of fits into that mold. You could take a lot of these applications and apply it to like NIST, for example. And we'll touch on Cyber Essentials as well for those in the UK. But yeah, let's get talking about CIS. And so a big control that DNSFilter fits into here is control number 8, which is Audit and Log Management. So I love working for DNSFilter. I'm a simple person. And guess what we do at DNSFilter? It is DNS filtering services. And so maybe I'm a bit biased, but I do love that CIS right here says, hey, collect DNS query audit logs. We do that. We fulfill that, as well as collect URL request audit logs. And so this allows for those in CIS to fulfill the IG2 and IG3 roles, which is, determinant on the complexity of your procedures and processes. And so essentially it just allows you as an MSP to detect, threats earlier. So I remember, a figure that I saw last year was just that hackers or threat actors are typically in a system at least 24 days, sometimes 100 days. I know that number changes from month to month. And a lot of the reason why is because those companies did not have proper audit log management to actually detect, or using a SIM tool to actually detect these threat actors that are inside their network. And so this is, for me, a huge part. And so, we do fulfill that role for control number 8. Anything you want to touch on here, Juan, before we move on to the other controls?
Well, and this is the beauty of what I think it does, right? Is it's like, okay, now when I'm thinking about, like, I got a lot of MSPs that often ask me, well, what was your stack like? And it's like, it was secure, right? And it's really mapping to that notion, right? It's like, you really need to figure out, why am I using the vendor that I'm using today? What is it that I'm doing that is this impacting me in some meaningful way? And I get it. I talk often with several of my friends in the industry about the shiny ball syndrome and how do we fix that. And I think that it's being more intentional with the products and services that we offer. I mean, when you look at yourself as an MSP and you're thinking about, what is it that I sell today? It's kind of like, okay, well, what do I really want to be liable for? Is really kind of the conversation that we want to be talking about in the future. We've been offering a whole bunch of products up until this point, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to get really tight around this one thing and be really specialized in this area and really offer a really good experience that's secure and compliant. And that's where I think that, when we start to align vendors with those controls, it starts to make a lot of sense.
Right. And remember how we talked about document everything. This is a way, log management could be a way that's automated, exportable. And that way, if there's not 90-day retention from your current vendor for certain solutions, please ask for it, or find a way to export those to a SIM or hold it somewhere else. Because again, as your liability, it is super important for you to keep all of the logs. So, okay. Let's talk about my favorite one, which is control number 9, email and web browser protection. Guess what HacWare and DNSFilter does? A bit of email and web browser protection. So again, like it says, it totally just calls us out here. Use DNS filtering services. I wish you just said use DNS filter on all enterprise assets. But it is a very basic component to do some sort of web and content filtering for your customers. As again, so the web attack surface is so huge, this is an easy way to prevent those things happening, perhaps after a click, right? And then maintain and enforce network-based URL filters. So email and web are prime targets for hackers. I'll let you talk about the email portion, because I know that is such a huge component, and probably the consistently number one way that hackers get into some sort of network is through the email. So I'll let you touch on that one.
Yeah, and I know, at HacWare, we're a phishing simulation and education component, but we're really helping to build, a human-centric security, approach. That's really where we're at, right? So as far as our product, although it does, I think we meet 14 way better, which we'll talk about here in just a second. I mean, we dead on nail 14, but 9 is very important. And to the point that Gartner just released a study, and they said that by 2025, the consumerization of AI-enabled fraud will be so drastic that it will be incalculable, right? And when you think about that, it's like, the world that we're living in will become so daunting that the only last layer of protection we have is the human-centric layer, right? And is that technology will move past, and all these threats will move past our ability to stop them. And we're kind of seeing that today, right? And that's where I really think that it's really essential for us to start focusing on this. And in particular, right, to your point, 90% or 80% of of risks and threats that have come into an environment come in through email, right? And that's crazy to think that we're still in this era, that we still have these challenges, and that it's still here. It's like, how have we not stopped this thing, right? So it's really wild to know that it may be unstoppable.
Right.
And it's really interesting to see that we have an opportunity. And that's really, I like to say that, that in best practice, if we think about the test, and we think about the security questions in responding to a cybersecurity incident, the last thing we're supposed to do is educate the end user, right? So if we want to avoid some of these challenges, is flip the question upside down and flip best practice upside down on its head and say, what the last thing should be now the first thing, which is educate the end user, and then I can avoid all these other issues, right? That got me to the point of that. And so I'm excited about this. I like what you guys do, and I love what we do as well. And so I'm just happy to know that we align. And we, like you said, it should have just said, just use DNSFilter for.
Just use DNSFilter.
Yeah.
That fulfills that control. Yeah. So, but I love what you touched on about bringing the end user to the forefront instead of the background, because I think a lot of my cybersecurity training in the past was saying, hey, let's build all these layers. Let's build this castle, right? Network security, endpoint detection response, email security, getting a firewall. Let's build all these layers. But then the last layer was the human element, which they're like, yeah, just do some basic things here and there for them. But I love that, hey, let's bring them to the forefront, because this is where they are getting in. You could have the best defense in the world, but if a person just clicks a link because they felt like it, all of that goes away. So I'd love for you to talk about this Control 14, where I think, HacWare really shines and fulfills all these. And I'm sorry, the screenshot is so small. If you download the CIS Controls V8, head to Control 14, you could follow along here.
Yeah, no, and I think that it's really interesting, right? I think 14 might be one of the easiest things that we can do in all of the controls, right? And I say that just because it's the easiest and the hardest thing. It's the easiest to implement because it's, the least friction, right? Bringing education to somebody based on some of their active behaviors is probably one of the most easy things for us to do. It's implementing the policy behind it to stop it, to build those long-term educational opportunities that allow the end user to be empowered to make the secure decision. That's where I think the hard comes from. And this is where I called year 2023 the year of education for not just MSPs, but also for our consumers. We now have a new role in protecting this new world, is educating them on the security opportunities that are available. Technology over all these years has been, and we can now look back and, we always say hindsight is 2020, right? Every single person on this call has clicked a phishing link, and now all of us know we shouldn't have done it, right? So when we think about it, it's like, well, now we know better. Like, we already, luckily, it wasn't a big deal, right? And now all of a sudden, now we can actually learn from those opportunities, and this is where it's still a big deal, right? We have this new emerging ecosystem of modern business owners, right? The millennials and the Gen Zs and the Gen X, all of them. There's these new types of people coming into the ecosystem, and all of them don't know how to get on the internet, right? And this is where we have this opportunity, is to say, here's what this looks like. It's bad. Don't click it. And if you do click it, it's okay. We were here to cover you. It didn't, you didn't have a breach in your environment, but it could have been, right? And this is why a proper layer of approach here is really important. And this is why I'm really excited about us. And again, like I said, I think 14 is probably the easiest thing to do, right? Because you can get a vendor like HacWare and actually implement that really simply, and then really be engaged in educating your end user about it. But it's not just about the phishing simulation. It's about also using a tool that actually teaches them outside of just phishing, and cybersecurity awareness as a whole component. And that's where we really think it's really important for end users to think about, not just the phishing piece of it, but how am I talking about security and compliance and CIS controls? Like, how am I educating my customers about CIS and how they're making an impact by adhering to these rules, right? And that's where I think you need a really comprehensive vendor here. And I'm happy that we're able to offer all of those controls out as an opportunity. But it's an awesome opportunity for MSPs.
Yeah. If only I could use HacWare for my mom, because I've never clicked on a phishing link. I'm just kidding. I probably have in the past as a kid. But yeah, if we can solve that issue of parents or grandparents clicking on links and text messages, that would be great. I think HacWare is a good place to start on teaching them.
Oh,
I remember
man.
you mentioned,
I use my dad all the time,
Right.
man. That guy, he always clicked the phishing link.
Right. No, what I really felt was a cool feature of HacWare was that one where you could do an actual simulated phishing injection and spoof CIS. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's really important to educate, really important to teach. But I think like those real life scenarios that can actually happen and testing people on that is big. So can you?
One of the things, and for many of you that have taken a phishing simulation in the past, I mean, whether you worked in corporate America or you're an MSP selling it, or maybe you've used a tool like that, one of the things that's difficult, and it's easy to spot phishing simulations, from the past, right? And one of the things that we do is we have direct email injection. So we don't actually have to send the email out through a third party and then back in. That may get caught by a spam filter. We literally have been built into the Microsoft Graph API where we can actually inject an email from Dom at DNSFilter to Juan at DNSFilter, and it's going to look like it came straight from Dom. Like it didn't stop it. No, there's nothing in the middle there. It came straight from him, straight to me, and it says, "Hey Juan, can you do me a favor and look at your 1099 from last year and download it so that we can make sure that we have it on file." Like that stuff will nail you to the wall. And we see people that say all the time, "Oh, well, we're not going to fail a phishing simulation." And I'm like, okay, right? But when you get something direct, yeah, like if it came from Tiffany to me, I'm going to look at it pretty squinty. But we're, now they're all trying to see if we can get one to click a phishing link, and I'm like, nah. But in normal business cases, and if I'm in a hurry, and that's one of the beauties of what it does, is our AI looks for a time when you are actually the most susceptible to clicking emails, and it looks for the people that you send and receive from the most, and then it uses that. And that's what gets you, right? And that's where you really need a new version of opportunity and that education and really succinct training so that they know, man, I've had so many tech companies come in and they go in and they take the test and then they fail it. And they're like, I'll be honest, that direct injection was what got me.
Exactly.
It's the one that you didn't think was going to happen. And that's how threat actors get in, right? I send you a phishing link. It says, change your password. I log in, you change your password. You send it to me. I log into your Office 365 portal. Boom, I'm sending you emails as somebody else, right? We're just reverse engineering the act. Right. And that's where I think it's really fun. So yeah, I really appreciate you highlighting that because it is something special.
No, I love that feature. I think it's super critical in being able to challenge people, whether they're in IT or just an essential employee or someone who's just working there, to be able to test them on some real life examples like that. So just a touch on CMMC. And so these are some of the things again that DNSFilter can help with. On the CMMC side, if you guys are working with any U.S. government-based agency, we do fulfill a few of the levels and roles here. So feel free to screenshot this. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we'll help you map out where DNSFilter fits in your solution. And so, I'm going to kind of quickly go through these as we do have some other things to talk about. I know Dee's out there talking about Cyber Essentials, UK or European MSPs. So for those who aren't aware, Cyber Essentials is a similar program, a similar cybersecurity framework to CIS NIST, backed by the UK government. There's two levels of certification. One, self-attestation. There's the second one, which is Essentials Plus. That's where technical verification actually happens. Unfortunately, as of today, I don't see anything that states DNS or web security specifically. I hope that changes sometime soon. It does mention something like a software-based firewall. But I believe, as an MSP, it behooves you to actually get ahead of others and show them like, hey, I'm following these other practices that maybe cyber insurance companies are looking at, maybe other governments are looking at as well. If you're in Australia, just know you have that Essential 8, where it does actually mention DNS filtering services, which is really awesome. So for those out there who are international, just know that we fulfill a lot of roles for those compliances as well. But I think in general, we want to talk about how is this a business opportunity for MSPs? We get why it's important. We get why you need to walk the walk, not just check the box. But how is this a business opportunity for MSPs? What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and I think, like I said, early on, one of the most important things that we can be doing is showing how we're using, providing digital transformation to the thoughtful use of technology, right? And ultimately doing it securely. And I love the story, right? Because when you talk about customer outcomes, I just want to be able to run my business, right? And that's the beauty of what customers want at the end of the day is they want to be able to do it, and they want to be able to be secure, and they want to be able to go get their insurance, and they want to be able to have a cybersecurity liability policy that doesn't require them to spend tons of time trying to figure out and $1 billion worth of money to implement. And if you're doing those things up front, you're winning every moment that you're helping them get to that point in that game, right? And this is where I think that, MSPs that are really delivering this new level of value are going to win. And it's because they're focusing on where the skating to the puck, where the puck's going to go, and it's secure and compliant. And I think that if you can, we just looked at that state of the SMB report a moment ago. Customers are already aware, whether or not you think they are or not, right? They're aware of it. It's just a matter of whether or not they see you being successful with them. And that's the first no you're going to get, is you always wonder, maybe I was doing something I should have been doing. It's no, I don't see myself being successful with you. Why? Because you don't have a plan. And if you have a plan for my success that implements security, policy, procedure, and best practice, you're going to win that deal. And this is why I think it's really important for MSPs to really, double down on this and really stay focused on it, because I think it's a great opportunity, and I really look forward to it. Everything that's going to happen this year and watching MSPs be successful.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that one. And I think Luis, one of the viewers here, just put in data laws create opportunities for all MSPs. And I agree with that 100%. I think is for an MSP, it's just the ability to actually educate and talk to your customer about this is huge. So, I don't like taking those 1.5 trillion stats or, enterprises, a breach happening in an enterprise cost them $1.5 million. That's not relevant to a dentist in Denver, Colorado, right? That's not relevant to a lot of the SMBs we care about. Maybe like 10 employees, 5 employees, 20. But what is relevant is that they understand that ransomware is out there. They understand that if they were to receive some sort of downtime ransomware, it could be a death blow. And so SMBs are aware of this. It's just a matter of teaching the story of showing, hey, this is where you're at today by taking that initial assessment, and this is where we can get you, and these are the solutions that we're going to use to prove it to you, and this is the framework I'm going to use to show you how I'm doing it as a managed service provider. So I 100% agree that data laws are going to be a business opportunity for MSPs, and those that get ahead of this and are able to articulate this very well, articulate the story to SMBs, is going to be at the forefront. It's going to be at the leadership, in the next couple of years, because, what I always tell SMBs is like, look, it doesn't matter what you have. You could be a candle shop selling on Etsy, but if your candle shop goes down for a week, how much revenue are you going to lose? Especially, nowadays, that revenue is super critical for those SMBs, right? And what I found in that data report is that only 54% of SMBs are somewhat satisfied of their current security solution. They're not completely satisfied. Actually, a majority are not satisfied at all with their current security solution. And so on the flip side is, at least in America, is that there is a huge shortage of security talent. This actually provides you as an MSP an opportunity, a foot in the door to get into that SMB space and show them how you can be their security advisor that's outsourced. That's cheaper than hiring some sort of internal IT manager. You can save some money, but also reduce their risk and increase their protection. If you can tie those three pieces together for an SMB, that's how you can win this, and that's how you can leverage these tools to win more deals, but also not only protect yourself, but protect more customers, which is really ultimately what we're trying to do today. And as Matt Lee says it, is to raise the tide of all, so that way we're all a bit more secure. So yeah, I'm loving this opportunity and the space that we're in today, because I think this is actually really big for MSPs to leverage. So, but I think lastly, we're going to have this as a key takeaway, and I love this this picture you have here, Juan. So I want to hear your thoughts on about building a culture of security consciousness.
I think that's really where we're at, right? And I love the fact that you call this like the 10 commandments of cybersecurity. It's kind of funny when you said it. I love that. And you know, that's the beauty of being able to know you're doing the right thing, is when you know you're having fun and you're making an impact. But you know, there's some great steps to success here, right? And you mentioned the first thing was document what you got going on. Documentation is key. But I really think at the end of the day, you know, again, partnering with HacWare or DNSFilter, like, you know, look for vendors that actually care. You know, we do care. We care about the community. We care about your customers. We care about your success. And really, and that's where you're building that security consciousness, right? It's not just your internal team. It's actually your vendors that you work with. It's your customers that you work with. All of those things in tandem to eliminate the cybersecurity risk level as a whole. Right. So stepping toward best practice, looking at these, you know, 10 steps to success, and really making sure you're instilling a cybersecurity culture internally to create cybersecurity heroes within your employees. Because one of the great things during employee retention is, if you look at what retains an employee, is when I see myself being successful as an organization and we're making the right steps to do the right things for the customers, and the customers are appreciative of those things. And I know that in MSPs, one of the challenges is, you know, it just feels like a grind sometimes. But when your team sees that you can win because your program works, because it's delivering something secure and complete, and the customers are happy, it really makes a difference in changing their behavior. And it really changes the opportunity that you have, not only internally, but externally with your customers. So, you know, one of the other things too is making sure that, you know, you're providing that education, and that you know, you're eliminating the automatic trust response within your customer, right? Making sure that they're aware of all the opportunities. And I think that just this, again, back to the year of 2023 being the year of education, I encourage every MSP that's here today, whether you're a technology solution provider, break fix, MSP, MSSP, whatever it is, you know, value added reseller, whatever. It's just making customers more educated about the opportunities that you can deliver to them, and doing it in a measurable, methodical, secure, and compliant way. And I think that you will find that you will win a lot more business doing it that way. And so, Dom, what's your final thoughts on this, brother?
No, I think this is the final piece and most important piece. So, you know, I hear this said a lot, but I'm going to say it again, is that, you know, if you're in an airplane and the plane's going down, what do they say first? Please put on the mask first before you help assist others. So I think adhering to this security consciousness, a culture of security internally within yourself, within your MSPs, not just checking the box, but actually doing the dang thing is super important. And then finding, again, like you said, vendors and resellers who do also have that same culture, where they have a more security-based mindset. And so, you know, I know it's sometimes difficult, but I think, you know, understanding that concept itself is just being able to actually, you know, effectively enact these procedures is huge. So I think, yes, these are the 10 security commandments. I love the first two. Fully document what you have, fully document everything that you do. If you take away anything from today's call, it's document, 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 because at the end of the day, you may be liable as an MSP for when things do happen. And so, you know, again, I think wherever or whatever compliance framework that you do choose, at least choosing one and starting today is critical in raising that tide, raising that security bar to make it a lot harder for hackers to get in. and a lot easier for our SMBs to continue doing what they're doing. So with that, we'll leave it to some questions. If there are any, I think we've answered any in the chat so far. But if you have any,
there were some good ones.
Yeah, we did good on time. So we have some 5 minutes here. Please lay it out. And thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you guys watching the MSP's Road to Compliance. This is your time to hit Juan. He used to be on the board of CompTIA. Everything you have. He wrote the MSP book, y'all.
I did actually. What's interesting is for many years I've written the A+ Security Plus network tests for a long time, and I always look at the challenge in cybersecurity is always that last thing, the test question that's the hardest is what should we do in the cybersecurity? It's always that last question that we get wrong is educate the end user. And it's like, oh, I don't want to educate the end user. They're so troublesome, It was so much fun watching and seeing how those test questions came across. So I do know that that's a challenge for us, and it's okay. It's okay. We have the information that we can use now in the ecosystem and vendors to support us that allow us to educate that end user. And so I'm excited to be able to help solve that problem. So,
and I think HacWare and DNSFilter are match made in heaven. In case, like, what happens if someone does click something, even through all the training, right? Maybe something was that good.
Yeah.
Guess what? Well, hopefully you have DNSFilter on the back end to block them from getting to that, because that's what we're here for. So
protect. Number 9 on that was security first organization, right? And it's really interesting. So like for many of you that are out there, and I'll just inject this reality, we just launched something called lessons plans that we have CIS, FACTA, FISMA, HIPAA, ISO, NIST, PCI, SOC 2, SOC. One of the things that with those lesson plans is, if you're implementing CIS controls, one of the cool things is to tell your story, but also say, hey, we're implementing CIS controls for your organization. Here's some education that you guys can do it. So not just education around, cybersecurity awareness on the phishing side, but also cybersecurity awareness on the compliance side, right? So I'm excited that we just launched those. It came out this morning, so I couldn't wait to share. So I'm glad we're in the comment in the chat. So you guys got any questions about what that is there, just do me a favor and ping me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to help.
Please ping us. You can find me at Dominickus Wells on LinkedIn. And I love that 66% of the audience downloaded the CIS Controls V8. So I hope we provide some education there about how we can help and map to some of those controls. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either HacWare or DNSFilter regarding that. We're happy to help you on your journey to compliance and tell that story to your customers. 73% of the audience now. Thank you all. So
boom.
Great.
Love it. Well, I'm and I think some of the resources that we shared today were fantastic. So if anything, go through those, take a look at them. They're wonderful resources. Become more self-aware of your security requirements. Just being a technology solution provider. A lot of them are like, Juan, I don't really know what I should be doing. And it's like, okay, well, let's figure out what we should be doing in our state first. Let's figure out what we should be doing as a compliance. Let's figure out some easy steps to move forward. So, all the resources that we shared today were very meaningful. And if you guys got any questions about them, hit us up. Happy to share. Happy to just jump in with you and just, help you walk through that road to compliance.
Yeah. Well, great. I think without any questions, we'll end it here. Thank you so much, Juan, for joining me today. Thank you for everyone.
Pleasure, man.
Today, saw people, a lot of people in California, a lot of people from around the world. So we really appreciate you listening to what we have to say regarding compliance. So with that, we hope you all have a good day, and see you guys around.
See you soon, folks.